Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Arn. And of course, we couldn't do it without the founder of the Four Horsemen, the enforcer himself, Double A, the Hall of Famer, Arn Anderson. Arn, how are you, man?
Good afternoon.
I'm excited to be here with you, buddy. 2 weeks ago, we had a really good Ask Arn Anything. We got way in the weeds talking about Jim Crockett. We're going to try to bounce around for a few different topics. Of course, last week we covered TLC 2015. Next week, we're going to cover Starrcade 2000. This is the last Starrcade. As a reminder, we've got Scott Steiner and Sid Vicious on top. We've got Goldberg working with Lex Luger. We've got DDP and Kevin Nash working with Palumbo and Stasiak. We've got General Hugh G. Rection taking on Shane Douglas. We've got Mike Awesome and Bam Bam Bigelow, Terry Funk and Crowbar, Lance Storm and Ernest Miller. There's so much silliness, so much talent. It's WCW in 2000, but it's not quite the Starrcade we grew up on, but it is the last one. And we're going to talk about it next week. And I feel like I can hear you breaking out in hives from here, just talking about WCW in 2000.
That's a shame the way it ended up. I was there 12 years. I saw it go from, just a solid TV program to a moneymaker and on fire and dominating the industry and then fizzling out with a whimper.
Well, we're hoping to bring you a bang this week. Let's talk about some of the WCW mini movies. Michael wants to know if Arn was given the choice to guest star.
What the hell?
Oh, that's so great. What a great question, Michael.
You dumped all over that.
If Arn was given the choice to guest star in one of WCW's mini movies, Spin the Wheel, White Castle of Fear, or Beach Blast 93, where they had a little person put a bomb on a boat, what would you have picked? All of these are horrible, Arn. And I love the idea of hey, can we get Arn Anderson to attack the little person on the beach? The one with the shark fin on his back, who's got a stick of dynamite he's going to put on the boat. Sting and Davey Boy will be there distracted playing volleyball with children. And then Vader will show up in sneakers and rest of his wrestling gear. And of course, Sid will be there in his wrestling gear, but flip flops. Oh, and who could forget Colonel Robert Parker? When you're going to get on a boat and take a 3-hour tour, well, you dress like a plantation owner, regardless. This to me would have been the funniest thing we could have had you do in 1993. If you had to pick, which one would you have preferred to have been in?
Whose question is this?
Michael,
you were puffing on a long, thick one, right? When you pictured this, please give yourself that out, because this is terrible. So let's just stay in character. What would have most fit me?
Well, White Castle of Fear could have been fun. I liked at the end of Spin the Wheel where Jake and Sting are shooting lasers out of each other's eyes. I guess you could have been in the bar that day with that dude with the eye patch. But the man, just knowing that you love the beach, and we've seen those famous photos of you guys on the beach, and you're always there, and you grew up loving Pensacola, and that was your favorite territory. And I don't know, the idea of you being in that beach class one just fucking tickles me.
Okay. Not the fact that I'm laid out there oiled up like a big whale and all these people just infringe on my downtime. That's not an issue there. I'm just supposed to sell it, right? Number two, the only White Castle of fear there could be would be if it was the White Castle. I pull up to the window and they slide the door open and say, "We're out of hamburgers." That's White Castle of fear. Not quite the Crystal, but White Castles ain't bad. And then the third option was blow up with me getting blown up on a boat.
Yeah. Spin the wheel was one of them, right? So they have this like old bar. I think Medusa's there, and yeah, Jake's already in there. Sting comes in looking for a fight, and the crowd randomly in this bar starts chanting, "Spin the wheel, spin the wheel." The guys look at each other and just shoot fucking lasers at each other out of their eyes. I don't know. It's the silliest, dumbest shit ever. And the idea that you're asked to make sense of it or do it is just hysterical to me.
I've tried sorting through it because all that in its entirety is not as rotten as the Renegade match. So, yes.
Chris McDonald, if you're listening, we need a video where we have the Renegade's head on like Sting's body, and we need Arn on Jake's body, and we need those lasers. Let's recreate the spin the wheel video with Renegade and Arn. My God, that's hysterical, dude.
You're putting my head on whose body?
Jake's, right? Let me give you a full head of, well, 3/4 of a head of hair.
So for once, I've got to actually get a body double that's worse than mine.
What, would you rather be on Sting? That might actually be more comical now that I think about it. Yeah. Arn with a flat top. That could be fun.
Oh, this is not the way to go about life.
This was not a good way to start the show. I agree. We could have literally picked anything else.
You did a good job, young man. You made us all get miserable here first thing in the morning.
I freaking love the idea of you on that beach with that little dude. That's hilarious.
How little is this dude?
He was Swoggle's height. You don't remember with the dynamite and the shark fin, or is it a painful memory you've blocked out?
There's a lot of stuff that I don't remember just because my whatever neurotoxins are in my brain, they're protecting me from remembering it.
Sure. I get it. Mike wants to know, were there any wrestling moves the first time Arn saw them that made him go, holy shit? Was there a move that really, maybe a more spectacular flippity doodah or something like that?
I'll tell you one that made sense, which, again, I'm one of these guys that is not going to say, don't do the flip flop and fly. You got to take it out. Our business is going to collapse. Not that guy. I think there's a blend of a lot of stuff, that we should keep in, and some stuff that we need to put some safety measures on, and we got to plug in some storytelling and all that. But one time we were on a Japan show, and it was probably the first Japan show that I'd ever been on. And I immediately gravitated to their style and them, even though a guy's got a submission on him and he's a baby face, he digs to the ropes to save himself from having to tap out as a baby face. And the first time I'd seen that. So you being a wrestling enthusiast, you would look at that as a little funky, right?
Oh, for sure.
Well, but as I watched the matches, the audience popped when the guy had an option. Either tap out, he's got a vicious hold on him, he can't wrestle out of it. Other than lose the match, he saves himself the only way he can with the ropes. It started to make sense to me. And that style started to make a little more sense. This was not the strong style stuff so much, but just the storytelling. And then we saw the kid come out, who's a tremendous performer. What is the Japanese boy's name that works for us, that worked with Brian Pillman, had the incredible match? Well, had the mask.
Oh, yeah. Jushin Thunder Liger.
Thunder Liger. How could I not know that name? Well, in the middle of the show, he was having a hell of a match with somebody, and all of a sudden they went up top and they're standing on the top, and Liger took a superplex. Now, I had never seen a superplex standing on the top. Here in the States, you stood on the second, so there was some safety, and the guy that was getting superplexed was on the top. Both guys were standing up on top, and he took the damnedest bump I'd ever seen. He never moved. They shut the show down. They sent EMTs down. They took 15 minutes to get him on a stretcher. They shut the show down, and they took him out of there in an ambulance. And it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. It was a big bump, but by today's standards, it wouldn't warrant that. But I saw that and I went, when this guy comes back, and hopefully they'll keep him off 6 months or something, he's going to draw a ton of money. Just from the way the audience felt for him that night, that you could just tell. People were crying. Men were crying. Women were crying. They thought he had killed this guy. It's awesome.
We've got a couple of belt questions here, and it's kind of fun because if you're watching on adfreeshows.com, our skin for our video today is themed after the WCW or the NWA television title, the one that Arn made famous. Well, Eldridge wants to know, what did Arn think when he saw the WCW TV title dropped in a trash can?
It was just done at a time that people thought they were in charge, that they could do anything, get away with it. It would be perceived as heat. And, you know, not the fact that it was just low road cheap heat. That's all it was.
Do you have any funny stories about traveling with championship belts?
What? No.
I mean, like sometimes we've heard Rick say that, you know, he was, I think he was in Birmingham and he lost the belt. Like, he doesn't remember exactly where it was. He thinks he left it in the backseat of somebody's car or something. Ultimately they get the belt back, but for a brief moment, the big gold belt was gone. It was missing. Did you ever lose the belt or check the belt or it fall out in public or any sort of comical outside of the normal, you know, context of a wrestling match or a wrestling arena or a wrestling show where the belt was, in a little bit of a situation?
Well, I mean, just if you look back on it now with today's standards and post 9/11, let me put it to you this way. You never checked the bag that had the belt. You put it in your work bag. You never checked your work bag. When you were flying, you carried it on. But obviously you would have to, at security, they would have to open your bag and see what this big chunk of metal was. I find it amusing that there was many times that, oh yeah, that's the TV belt. That's Enforcer's belt, TV belt. And they would be, I'd say, well, hey man, wrap it around you, try it on. You've got the entire security team over there trying on the belt, getting pictures taken. Bin Laden could have walked through security behind us and they would have never had a clue. They just completely abandoned their posts. I'm looking behind me. People are walking through security. Nobody's checking nobody for nothing. And it was the biggest uproar about that television title you've ever seen. That could be construed as funny if you sat there and watched it from afar.
Mayhem wants to know, there are rumors of a WWE do not touch list. I guess this is supposedly something they put in place after Lawler had his incident on air where he had a heart attack. Does such a list exist? And who might be on it if it does?
It did. And believe it or not, you know one of the names on that list? JBL.
Really?
Yeah. I think he came back from an injury at some point and was doing commentary. You know, and he was on that list. The announcers were on that list. It was a very real list. Yes, it was. I can't remember who all was on it, but
let's do another one here. Rajiv wants to know, during this time of quarantining and such, Arn, have you developed any new hobbies? I personally rediscovered how much I enjoyed to read.
And that's, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are figuring out things to do. You know, Netflix, I would love to have gotten in on the ground floor on their stock.
Yeah,
how cool would that have been?
Yeah.
lot of series on TV, like Ozark, which is our favorite. Incredible stuff. They a lot of good stuff on Netflix. But I guess the thing that is the blessing that has came through this for our family, and it's only based on the fact that I was gone so much of their lives for everything from senior night at football to amateur wrestling matches, to their birthdays, to our anniversaries, to all kinds of things that you want to attend. Your kid gets his ass in a sling at school. I should be at that parent teacher meeting. It's just football practice, all kinds of things that you would have wanted to have seen. I had to miss. So, the one thing we've done on a 100% scale, every night we sit down and we have dinner together and we have a little bit of time to just talk as a family. And that may not seem like a big deal to a lot of people. To me, it's a big deal. And going to the grocery store daily, which you would never do before. And what are y'all in the mood for today? And either grilling out or cooking or somebody volunteering to cook that night and getting to spend just that time in the kitchen and around in the den and watching football together. It's been a real blessing. So there's a little bit of good has came out of all this bad for us anyway.
Interesting question here from Charlie. I'm going to tweak it a little bit though. He wants to ask about a 4-way elimination match. Of course, this is hypothetical. Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, the Fantastics, and the Fabulous Ones. Who walks out the winner?
Midnight Express, Fabs, Rock and Roll Express,
and Fantastics. Tommy Rogers, Bobby Fulton.
Midnight Express.
Yeah, I think so too.
Cornette would have figured a way to screw him out of it.
Rajiv wants to know, did you ever debate shaving your head? I started losing my hair at a young age and thought it looked better for myself. So I've been bald for years. Did you ever think about doing the old buzz?
I did, but I probably don't have the right shaped head for it. And there's so many holes and knots that are on my head that with a little bit of fuzz I've got on top of it, you don't see. You would certainly see if I, shave my head. It's like Austin has that perfect egg head to be bald. He does bald excellent. I don't think I would do bald very good.
Fun question here from Charlie. He wants to know, can you tell us about your match with Tom Mcgee? Of course, this became something that everybody was talking about last year when the lost tape between the famous match between Tom Mcgee and Bret Hart was finally discovered, seemingly after been lost for years and years. It aired on the network and got everybody buzzing. It was written about at the time that this guy was going to be the next big star. He looked like the Ultimate Warrior, but wrestled like Ricky Steamboat, or that's what people thought. And then they saw him with some other opponents and, well, wasn't quite the same. I think DiBiase had a crack at him. You had a crack at him. Bret Hart had a crack at him. And those were his 3 good matches. But with anybody else, it was, less than awesome. What do you remember about your Tom Mcgee match?
How was the Bret Hart match? Did you watch it?
It was good.
It was a good match or just good for the circumstances?
No, it was a good match.
Well, then Brad needs to take a bow because I didn't have a good match with him. And I don't think Teddy did. I think it was passable. But when you're working with three heels with that much experience, you think they would have all been good, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they were good. I think Tom was a guy, this was a time where Vince salivated over guys that looked like that. I mean, he's a body guy, obviously. And Tom, handsome guy, incredible body, very athletic. I think his background was like, gymnastics or something?
Yeah, he had a crazy background where he did have some gymnastics, I believe, but he also had lots of other competitive things that he had done. But the biggest of which that got Vince's attention was competitive bodybuilding. So he's doing strongman type competitions, but he looks like a competitive bodybuilder. And I think that was obviously the attraction.
I think the downside, and I put a lot of thought to it. I remember having the dark match with him, before the show started. You at least have a fresh crowd. But they were smart enough to know you're out here with this guy that they have no clue who he is. You have all this history, and you're just bumping around for a guy, and you just put him over with his finish. They saw through it pretty quick, and word spread. Um, I just don't think Tom's timing was right because you got to remember during that particular time, that era, a lot of guys were very good workers. And when you were not very good, you really stood out because there were a lot of great workers. Matter of fact, that was a prerequisite of being able to get a job during that time. And I just think he was so, and I can imagine him being out there with a less seasoned heel and really stinking the joint out. So I don't know when he left or why he left or anything like that.
Well, it's just fun to go back and talk about sort of the what ifs. I think a lot of our listeners, we get the questions a lot of times. Hey, why didn't this guy work out? Hey, why didn't that guy work out? And that became almost a legend because nobody ever saw the actual match. Let's talk about, Tyler. He says, if you hadn't been forced to retire, how much longer do you think you would have continued your in-ring career? And I know, Arn, that the easy answer is to say, well, as long as I could, because I loved my job. I mean, I get that. But realistically, when you look around at your peers and you just know, what your personal goals were, could you imagine an alternate reality where you kept wrestling and had a more traditional, hey, everybody, this is my last match type of deal? When do you think that would have been?
I don't know. I was damaged goods for a long time. Just having the gravel in my neck and the pain before the last injury ever happened. I probably had a couple of years of and you learn to live with it, believe it or not. But every time you turn your neck, you hear, and you don't have that flexibility that takes forever. You spend most of your off time in chiropractic chairs and massage chairs and just to get you in shape enough to go out and have matches. I was probably nearing the end when it just came to an abrupt halt. I had to have that surgery, but had it not gotten any worse, I could have probably gotten through 3-4 more years, I would think. I wouldn't say any much further than that. What do you think?
I think you would have made it a lot longer. I mean, you look at how much longer guys are wrestling these days. And I know we're not necessarily comparing, but I mean, Jericho's 50 and you retired when you were what, 37, 38?
Yeah.
So you're talking about being done at 41. I think you could have gotten, I mean, gosh, I'm not saying you would have been Flair and, wrestled to your 57 or whatever he was, but I just think it could have been longer for sure.
Well, who knows? I guess it was what's meant to be is meant to be. I went through so many phases with so many companies. You got to remember, I mean, even just 14 months with Pensacola, heels usually had 5 or 6 months in a territory back then. So I was fortunate to be there twice as long, almost 3 times as long as you should have been. I was with WCW 12 years. 12 years, and then 18 in the capacity with WWE last. So, I was with companies long periods of time. Sometimes I see talent, in today's world and talent that just came through like back in, John and Batista and Randy and their heyday and all that stuff and the different talent. And you see a few guys where you go, man, I wish I was healthy. I know I could have a hell of a match with that guy, and it's a fleeting thought, but that would be putting yourself in a time machine and skipping 15 years ahead. You certainly I certainly wouldn't have been able to do it that long.
It just would have been pretty interesting to think about if we could fantasy book for a minute. What if when the invasion happens on WWE TV in 2001, you and Flair come over and you're representing WCW together, and Malenko and Benoit sort of defect from the WWE and come rejoin you guys. And now you've got a 2001 one last hurrah Horseman run in the WWE in 2001. That could have been pretty fun.
What if one of them would have been Tully?
Oh, it would have been the best, dude. If you could have had Barry and Tully, that would have been the best. But
yeah. I mean, if we're dream booking, even after all those years, if he walked back in the door in shape,
it would have been bananas.
Oh yeah. It'd been way cool. It really would.
Anthony wants to know, forgive me if this has been asked and answered, during the sign era, did a sign ever catch Arn's eye during an event and make him laugh?
I couldn't see that far.
Oh, I forgot about that. You wear glasses. So yeah, you know, there's a sign, but who knows what it says, right?
I spent most of my career wrestling on body heat. Just grab the warmest thing in the ring. So I couldn't see worth flip.
Okay.
Imagine how good I'd have been if I could.
It's a wonder you and Stan Hansen didn't have a tag team or at least a sponsorship from Lens Crafters.
I could see good enough to know that if Stan was running across the ring in my direction, I'm out of there.
The Rosen Coaster says the phrase killing the town has been used amongst vets over the years, particularly the Greenville, South Carolina show War Games 97. In your opinion, is there a town that you feel once again could become a prominent wrestling town in today's landscape? Of course, I think he means pre-COVID, but is there a once former hot wrestling town that you think could come back?
Yeah. Greensboro. So much history, so much respect was given to Greensboro. There's so many good fans, sons and grandsons that are there now. I think if you pushed Starrcade in Greensboro, you had the right matches, the right young talent, a few legends scattered around that they remember and would like to see. You could rebuild it for a big show as soon as everything opened up.
Troy says, I don't think it's been answered before, but what are Arn's thoughts on the old United States tag belts? I loved them as a kid, but did he think that you really needed 2 sets of tag belts in that era?
No, especially because it was like, Midnight Express had those belts for a long time. And, Tully and I had the world tag titles, and there was different times, different, tag teams had, different belts, but when you have more than one of something, I think you could have had the world title, the US title, the television title, and 1 set of tag belts would have been plenty.
Big Jake Black wants to know, does Arn prefer pecan pie or sweet potato pie?
Pecan pie.
I could have guessed that. John wants to know, I know the holiday is upon us. What is Christmas dinner and dessert like at the Anderson household?
Heaven. I died and have went to carbohydrate heaven. Here's what we had this Thanksgiving. We had a honey baked ham. We had a turkey. Deviled eggs are huge with me.
Yep.
Green bean casserole, dressing, gravy, potato salad.
Wow.
Sausage stuffed mushrooms. And let me see, always have macaroni and cheese. It never makes the cut on my plate, as you can imagine.
So yeah, I was going to say, I can't imagine. It overpowers the pasta. Some dumb shit.
The sandwich meat or the hamburger is what it overpowers.
I know, but it's just funny that.
Damn it, man. But here's the key.
Okay.
Aaron makes just enough size of these dishes that you have your original meal, and you get one more go at it the next day, and then it's gone. It's not like there's buckets of this stuff.
Keeps you coming back for more. Keeps you wanting more.
Yeah. For the next Thanksgiving, you don't burn out on anything. It's awesome. Immediately to be followed. If you're following doctor's directions, eat this meal and immediately lay down.
Paul wants to know, has an enhancement talent ever challenged a superstar in the locker room after a match if he felt like he was being taken advantage of in the ring? That's an interesting question, Arn, because boy, Kevin Sullivan, the Steiner brothers, there's been a lot of guys who it looked like Vader. They were just brutal to some enhancement guys. Did anybody ever get pretty hot and bothered about it backstage and try to make an issue of it physically?
Well, I'm sure they all got hot and bothered. But there was that thing that between the ring and the locker room that usually put out most fires. God, I want to do this. I don't want to get fired. Probably went through their minds. But hey, there's some tough guys that come down to just do TV, and really tough guys that you never knew were that tough. You know, I never saw a backstage deal because I truly believe they figured in their mind that that was just part of the job. And by the time you got back there and you realized you weren't hurt that bad, you cooled off and just, you know, went on about your business because you wanted to come back the next time.
David McManus says, I just watched Starrcade 85 again. What's Arn's take on Ron Garvin as Miss Atlanta Lively?
Scary chick. He's not an attractive broad, which I've told him many times. It was entertaining and innovative. I just don't know if you go back and you dissect stuff throughout time, if it was fitting to do surrounding the world championship. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I mean, ha is tremendous. And when it's good ha like that was, it's got a great place on the show. I just don't know if you're wanting to take a babyface serious, that's the spot to put him in. I don't know. I mean, that's going to be for the fans to decide. You know, if they remember it and it was memorable and they enjoyed it, then it was a huge success. If they thought it might have been ill placed and could have went farther down the card with another heel and maybe not done as much damage to the champion, who knows? It's up to them.
What if they come to you and they say, okay, Arn, we got this great idea. We need you to put this wig and dress on. Oh, and throw this lipstick on and these high heels. We're going to call you Miss Charlotte Lively.
And do what?
Well, wrestle a match with Jimmy Valiant.
So, Jimmy, we got this fat broad in the other locker room who you're going to work with tonight. I don't know. You might not want to do the piss spot. Could be something to do with gender infringement.
The idea of you in a fucking wig.
Hell no. I did some degrading shit, but it was all done under the specter of wrestling and leading to a wrestling match. Me in a wig is not the answer.
Oh man. Let's do another one here about Mongo. Kevin wants to know, was working with Steve McMichael as bad as some have said? I do think the guy was a badass, but Lord, he couldn't wrestle.
No. What's this gentleman's name?
This is, Kevin Meehan.
Oh, hey, Kevin. I would just suggest this. Mongo never had one lesson with any trainer ever. He walked straight into our business, from football to where he was something special. He was an all-pro. He was on that 85 team that won the Super Bowl that might have been the best team of all time. It's arguable. Who knows? And buddy, he was an assassin. He brought the same qualities as a man to our business. The only thing was now he's trying to keep from killing everybody. So he's got to tone it down, and he's got to try to learn how to work with guys and not kill everybody, but with no formal training. So, yeah, was he going to be rotten? Probably. Anybody would have. I'm sure we were all rotten when we first started. But he did improve a little bit as we got along. And the main thing was he was such a strong character. You know, he had a great look. And I just knew the man beneath the persona. And he was not only all man, he was a good friend and a good guy to just sit around and talk to. He had a lot of great qualities. I still bump into him occasionally. He's never going to be in that top 5 workers of all time, but that wasn't his intention. And I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. We got another one here about Terry Funk. Zabisco's Island wants to know, has Arn ever had a singles match with Terry Funk? Those are my 2 favorite professional wrestlers, and I can't find a record of any singles match anywhere.
No, we had a tag for ECW. It was Bobby Eaton, myself, Terry Funk, and Sabu. Sabu and Bobby were partners. Terry and I were partners. I've never wrestled Terry. Would have been very honored to. I would have really loved to have gotten a time capsule and went back and wrestled him about 1979 or somewhere in there.
Oh, for sure.
You know, when he was young and healthy, and I would have been young and healthy, and would have been awesome.
Sean wants to know, in your opinion, who was the best Intercontinental Champion while you were working for the WWE?
Kurt Hennig.
Hard to argue with that one.
Because he's probably he's in the top 5 workers of all time. Incredible, unique, durable, entertaining, believable, all that.
Daniel Partridge says, as someone who is starting to lift weights for the first time, any advice for a complete novice?
Get a trainer at the gym to help you, set you up a routine, get you comfortable with it, spot you, and just get the knowledge that you need to start from the ground up. A lot of it's, if you're dealing with free weights or dumbbells, a lot of it's balance. And don't worry about the weight or the amount of weight you're using. Don't think that everybody's looking at you and going, God, that's all the weight he's using. We all started somewhere.
Right.
And at ground zero. And just, you're going to escalate at your own pace. Just remember, you're not working out for anybody in that gym. You're working out for yourself. So keep that presence of mind and do what you can do without being hurt or getting hurt, pulling a muscle or anything like that, because it will deter you from coming back. Take it easy at first. Settle in for a month with just light weights, or whether it's machines or whatever it may be. Just do less than you're actually capable of doing till you get used to balancing the bars and all that.
Next one is a fun one. The man of the 90s wants to know, if Arn could give a shoot spine buster to anyone in wrestling history, why would it be Disco Inferno?
Oh, it wouldn't. Glenn's harmless, I think. He's just one of those guys that he has a thought in his head, and he's going to go ahead and complete that thought, no matter if you're in the middle of a sentence or you're talking to one guy or 2 guys, or you're not paying attention, or you're really in a deep conversation with somebody, and he's going to put his head in and say what he wants to say at that time. No big deal. Feel bad about what went down behind us, you know, or between us years and years and years ago on a fateful flight. As you get older, you start to regret a lot of the things that could have been different very easily and changed very easily throughout your past. So no spine buster for Disco, but on a downside, he's good enough worker, he'd probably take a hell of a bump for me.
Nick Martin says, I've noticed the person delivering the DDT often slaps the opponent's back. Is there a reason for this beyond just telling them now's the time to go?
Noise is always good. And, I don't know. That's the way I did it. It felt like that smack in the back was helping drive him down in my mind. That was the illusion I was painting anyway.
Matt wants to know, what was Rocky King like? Some of the very first matches I ever saw were him losing to you and Tully. He seemed to be on TV every week, and I always found myself rooting for him, but I rarely hear him talked about beyond a passing mention. Any Rocky King stories you can share?
Well, now Rocky was one of those guys going back to enhancement talent that was pretty put together and strong and very green. And I've been in the ring with him a few times where he would just try to fight back, and he would leg dive you, and he had you pretty good. You had to stay on your toes in the ring with Rocky. Not that he was trying to double cross anybody or anything. He's just a big, strong kid that was excited. Here's my best Rocky King story. We may have told this on this podcast. Coming back from Fayetteville one night, I think it's Tully and I, there's a cutoff there at Highway 401 to where you could cut about 25 miles or 20 or 25 miles off of your trip if you take this one dark 2-lane road called Old Wire Road. So it's a shortcut. Not a lot of people know about it. It's really back roads. Could be dangerous if you're not a pretty good driver, actually. Because it's so dark back there. There's no lighting at all. So we're going down and we look ahead and there's this car up in front of us and they got the dome light on. So I go up beside them and I'm starting to pull around them to pass. And I look over and Rocky is driving. Jimmy Valiant is sitting in the co-pilot seat. The dome light is on. And I look and Rocky has a handful of cards. Jimmy has a handful of cards. They're playing cards going down the road. And all of a sudden, I just dropped back. And me and Tully are talking about this. I dropped back behind him and we're talking about this. I said, are we really seeing what we're seeing? Because there's nobody else in the car. We get up beside him again. Now, somebody must have decided we might be the cops or something, or it's dangerous. Now, Jimmy is holding both hands of cards. He's holding Rocky's cards. And they're continuing to play all the way to Charlotte with Jimmy holding both hands of cards and discarding for Rocky. I think the fix might have been in.
You think?
I think. Man, I was rolling.
John Etherton says, you'll never hear this anywhere else, but Tony Gurria was my favorite wrestler growing up. Like you, he was known as a tag team specialist, a guy that could form a quality tag team with any number of different wrestlers. In your prime, could you and Tony have made a good tag team?
No, Tony was a babyface. And I think he enjoyed being a babyface. We would have been oil and water in a bad way, I think. But I watched Tony, some of his matches from the earliest of times. He was pretty good hand. Him and Rick Martel made a good team.
Travis wants to know, did you ever feel like at times you were Ric Flair's babysitter, and how exhausting could that job really be?
Pass.
Ben wants, listen, I knew where the answer was going to be, but I knew that the audience would get a chuckle out of seeing you visually react to that over at adfreeshows.com, where, by the way, you can get these shows early and ad free. And of course you can see Arn's face when I ask him some of this silly stuff.
Well, and let me just be honest about it. Yes, there were many times that I was babysitting, but there's a lot of people out there that would say, that's kind of a privilege getting to party with Ric Flair and travel with him and all that other stuff. Probably didn't suck that bad. And it didn't.
No, listen, I had my handful of babysitting experiences, but if I'm honest, probably had to babysit both of us a time or two as well.
I doubt that. I'm going to stop you right there.
I don't know about that.
That's probably bullshit.
I heard once upon a time you were like weekend at Bernie's. You know, I don't know if that's true or not, but
What, I died?
no, but it looked like you did. They just propped you up, poured you off in a hotel room, and you woke up the next day and called the general. I don't know where I'm at. Come get me.
Yeah. I was probably as close to death as you can get and have survived it. That told me that day I was a pretty tough son of a bitch.
Yeah. When you just wake up in a strange hotel and you're not sure where you are, how you got there, but you still make the town on time and you still have a good match. That's being a horseman. It's not something you put on in the morning and take off at night, right?
Right. And right in the middle of it, let's not make light of the fact that I called and I called the Works Corporation and had them break up a board meeting so somebody could tell me where I was.
Yeah.
Works Corporation, you know, those guys that own the United Center,
kind of a big deal.
Basketball team, all that.
Yeah. And the hockey team, on and on.
Yeah. All that.
Ben wants to know, what was it like to film the old Flair for the Gold segments on WCW TV in the early 90s? It always looked like you and Rick were having a great time.
We did, but it's a pain in the ass because what nobody knew was in those days we would tape like 3, sometimes 4 weeks of television in one day. So I was having to wrestle, change into my Flair for the Gold, change back into my wrestling gear, back into a Flair for the Gold. Sometimes I would have 5 costume changes in a TV. That was a pain in the ass, even though I enjoyed doing the show because they gave us pretty much leeway to, you know, to do whatever we wanted. It was fun.
Ryan wants to know, why wasn't Arn in Ready to Rumble?
Good question. Well, I was not in favor with the folks making that decision.
This is an interesting question we haven't talked about before. Brian wants to know, what is your favorite botch or bad match that is a guilty pleasure? You know, we talk about when guys had great matches and great things that happened, but was there one that just really tickles you and it's always good for a laugh? Just maybe what happens is funny, or you just know the players and that makes it funny.
I will give the city of Philly a plug here. It's funny if you're an avid wrestling fan. You remember PN News?
Oh, of course.
Who I called CN News.
Yep.
Which kind of pissed him off because he thought I really didn't know his name. Worked with him in Philly. You know, it's that yo baby, yo shit.
Oh, of course.
Which might have resonated in some places, towns that didn't have a whole lot of entertainment. Maybe that got over there. Didn't get over in Philly. And I found out in the worst setting possible. So we're having a single match there and come to the ring and all that stuff, get the bell rung. And so I'm bouncing around for this guy to a symphony of silence. They are not budging, and he's bouncing me all over the place. So I cut him off, and the place went, wah. So I put the boots to him for just a couple minutes. He starts making a comeback, and they just go completely silent. I'll put him over right in the middle with his finish. Silence. He gets up, gets his hand raised, leaves the ring. I give him time to get out of there. I set up, stand up, and just look at the crowd and just go. And the place exploded. It is the most surreal thing you have ever seen. And it was Philly's way of telling me, hey, I get it. You had to put the tub of shit over. That's it.
The senior wants to know, any good memories of Greensboro ring announcer trucking Tom Miller that stand out?
Yeah, all of them. He made it seem big. Did he not?
He did.
he made it special. He made it, he was the Greensboro announcer, which gave him that stroke. Hell, he was over with all the guys. I knew he was over with the audience. And he just had a lot of, fire and intensity, and felt like it was something big you were fixing to see. And it was.
David Hogan says, when you and Tully dropped the belts to Demolition, they quickly dropped the belts back to Colossal Connection, and then Demolition would get the belts right back at WrestleMania 6. Had things worked out better, was the plan for you guys to work at WrestleMania? Do you think you would have worked Demolition and had that be a featured attraction at WrestleMania 6?
Well, I sure hope so. And, I don't think they would have took the titles off of us. We're on a roll up there. That's one thing. They did use us good. We worked with all their tag teams and had plenty of time for the matches, and it was good. I mean, they used us well. They just didn't pay us properly. There's that same thing again. So I don't know what the plans would have been, but I know they were happy with our work. That's for sure. And all the teams up there, wanted to work with us. So, and they did have a history of teams holding on to titles for quite a while. Demolition had them for, I think, almost a year straight.
Yep.
So there you go. And I'd love to work with those guys as much as possible.
The man of the 90s has a great question here. He says, in general, what did the locker room and bookers think of the known wrestlers or talents that were chummy with Dave Meltzer during the Crockett era? Do you have any stories of you or any of your cohorts confronting the locker room leaders, or leakers rather, during that era?
If anybody had that information, I didn't know anything about it because it wasn't something you talked about. I got a feeling you would got fired if it was proven that you were leaking information, because in those days, it wasn't that the perception wasn't that Dave was assisting and promoting our product and helping get it out there and helping it become acceptable and all those things. It was that he was making a living off of our business.
Right.
That was the perception, and that he didn't have a right to do that because he had never been in the business. And that was pretty much across the board perception of that he was, he was infringing. He was taking liberties and earning a nice chunk of change, just by reporting and having an opinion on the business. So, I mean, time has told the story that he's probably smarter than all of us because he's still in business and still thriving, and, probably has a valued opinion, around the world as far as wrestling goes.
Mark wants to know, if Magnum TA had not had his accident, does Arn think he would have ever gone to work with Vince? How would he have done there?
Sure. He'd been a big star. Really would. He had everything. Intensity, fire, promos, looked great. His work was coming along. The more, if he had had another year of working Crockett under his belt, he would have fixed the few glitches that he had in his work. He was a little snug, tell you that, but that's okay. In those days, you didn't mind. He for sure would have been a big star.
Craig Roy wants to know, was Cena's weekly U.S. title open challenge Arn's idea? I feel like a lot of fans thought those were some of Cena's best matches. And why was the open challenge dropped when Cena lost the strap? You may not know the second part, but was the open challenge something you came up with?
No, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was one of those things that, hey, he's a fighting champion, and as corny as that may seem, people like that. I'll take on all comers. I don't care, whoever, step up. And that resonated with the audience. I thought it worked out really well.
Great question here from Brett. When you did the table for three for the WWE Network with Ric Flair and Tully Blanchard, how much of that conversation had to be edited?
Probably most.
Yeah.
Yeah, cut.
Yeah.
Cut.
Yeah. Flair's lived a different life than you and Tully. So I'm sure he'd get going in one direction and it's like, hang on now, wait a minute.
Yeah. I mean, and he meant well, and just stuff like, Rick would say, oh, and another thing, how does so-and-so get in the Hall of Fame before Arn Anderson? What a bunch of shit that is. And he might not have even meant to be shitting on the talent and meant it to be favorable towards me, but you can't say that.
Right.
You know, and that's not what this is about. Let's go back and talk about the good times and you know, all that stuff. You know, there was so much stuff that had to be cut out. I'm sure that producer was so glad. He must have had several cocktails when that one was over.
In which of your matches did you lose the most blood? That's something we never talked about. Do you remember one?
I never hit the main one. Thank God. Because if you ever witnessed that, and I wish, you know, you can see all the scars and stuff pretty close. But if you hit the one in the middle, it's a horrifying feeling because it just squirts. It's like stepping on a water fountain. If you've ever seen that, it'll scare the shit out of you. A lot of those bunkhouse matches, you know, we bled a lot. A lot of the war games as well.
Keith wants to know, when you were watching wrestling from WDEF in Chattanooga, who was your favorite? Bullet Bob?
Wrestling in Chattanooga.
I guess he thinks you would have gotten that TV, WDEF. Does that not ring a bell?
We got a Chattanooga TV. I think it was Nick Goulas.
Channel 12, I think.
What's that? Ed, is that? But well, if Bob Armstrong would have been on it, he would have been one of my favorites for sure. Yeah, of course. I'm trying to picture that exact show. We got, in Rome, it was like Channel 3, and I want to say it was it Ed Caprell maybe? Does that ring a bell? Was the host?
I don't know. I never saw that.
God, I can't place it, but Bob Armstrong is one of my favorite wrestlers / human being / mentor / friend of all the guys I've ever met in the business.
Interesting question here from Shane Hill, more of a philosophical question. Overall, who does Arn think makes a better champion, a heel or a babyface?
I think a heel with a lot of devilish qualities that just makes you want to see him get his ass kicked. And it doesn't matter who does it. Once a guy reaches that acclaim and that reputation, that's when you really draw money, because they will pay to see anybody shut this guy up. And it also gives the babyface a mountain to climb, something to achieve. If he's already the champion, you know, I'm already satisfied. He has to go after a title that means something to him, tell me why it means something to him, and have to earn his way there.
Lisa wants to know, why did you call Lex Luger Wilbur?
Because he had 3 sets of chompers. Should have been an easy one. Wilbur.
JT wants to know, what's Stephanie McMahon like backstage? Do you think she or Shane is more knowledgeable about the business?
Oh, I don't know. Steph's pretty sharp. She's also top heel, boy. Send her through the curtain with a microphone, and
those are coming.
She knows how to get heat.
Yes, she does. Right? Yes, she does.
Yeah, she's very talented. She's a very talented heel. And I think Shane is a big fan of the business, and, you know, I'm sure he's very knowledgeable as well. But what he wants to be more than anything in the world is not an owner, you know, not an agent, not a producer. He wants to be a wrestler, and that's what he loves. And man, he is a kamikaze out there, obviously. No regard for his health and well-being if he sees something that he wants to do. So I think they're probably really gung-ho for different reasons.
Chris Dunn wants to know, have you ever seen a wrestler get beat up by a fan?
No, but there's some tough fans out there. I've seen things get pretty hairy. Ted DiBiase, when he was in Louisiana, and I was there with him for 5 months, some places like Laranger and Homa, to where the door to our locker room opened up, and all there was about 5 or 6 feet wide, 2 single strands of rope that went all the way down to the ring, and that was your barricade. And Ted DiBiase had done some rotten things to Junkyard Dog, who was as over in Louisiana as anybody's ever been over anywhere. I mean, they loved him down there. Ted would go out the door. His music would hit. He would start out the door. You would hear boom, 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 boom. And he'd come flying right back in the door. The fans were kicking his ass as soon as he stuck his head out the door. And we would have to stay until the show was over to make sure Teddy got back from the ring. And brother, there's some tough fans out there, especially when they're sucker punching you in the back of the head. I saw that quite a bit. There's been some occasions where guys would slide in the ring and double leg dives, one of the wrestlers and stuff. And you thought, oh God, this guy might have got a handful here. But the thing is, they realize pretty quickly that they have really overstepped their boundaries. And you could see when it hits them, they start looking around like, oh, this looks different being in here looking out than on the outside looking in. And they start thinking, and that's where you get control of them and get them out of the ring. But there's been some guys slide in that ring, pretty good sized fellas, that you wondered, is this going to end badly?
Got 2 more, and then we'll wrap things up here today. As a reminder, next week we're doing Starrcade 2000, the very last Starrcade. You get it early and ad-free, of course, at adfreeshows.com, as well as the video of all these shows we're doing. E-Town Vol wants to know, do you think Gino Hernandez would have been a potential Horseman had he not passed away?
From all indicators, absolutely. He had everything. He dressed the part. He could talk. Handsome guy, good worker. He had no weaknesses except one. And what a shame.
One last one, and then we'll get out of here. JB from SC wants to know, what were you thinking? What's going through your mind when RoboCop is coming to the ring to destroy you?
I should have stayed in drafting class.
We've had such fun with this one. I don't know why, but these Ask Arns are probably my favorite. I love getting your insight on modern WWE and old school wrestling, but when we can sort of bounce all around and be all over the place, it's a lot of fun. And we're glad of all the places you could be today. You chose to be with us here, listening to Arn tell stories on hashtag Ask Arn Anything. If you've got a question and you didn't hear the answer today, just ask it right now on Twitter. It's at the Arn Show. We'll be back with this format in 2 weeks. Next week, we're going to talk about Starrcade 2000. Of course, you can get all of these shows early and ad-free over at adfreeshows.com. And Arn, I'm excited, man. We're home stretching to Christmas. It's going to be here before you know it. As we're talking right now, we're like, 3 days away. So, any big Christmas plans? You guys staying in town? You guys going to be on the road again? What's Christmas look like for you?
No. In his infinite wisdom, Tony Khan has let all the guys off for Christmas week, which we love him for. I'm just going to hang out here in Charlotte and do what we normally do. Watch football, watch college football, and have an incredible meal and just enjoy the house being decorated, man. It just makes you feel good.
It does. And boys and girls, you make us feel good when you hit that subscribe button. We appreciate all your support and the friendship that we've developed here with you over the course of the year. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and I hope Christmas is the best one yet. And I hope the new year brings a change of circumstance for a lot of us, and 2021 looks a whole lot better than 2020 did. Until next time, he is at the Arn Show. I am at Hey, it's Conrad, and we hope you have some happy holidays. We'll see you next week with Starrcade 2000 right here on Arn. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.